Gender equality, especially in science, is an important issue as women have been historically underrepresented in this field. Despite the progress made over the years, women continue to face barriers to entry, career progression, and recognition in science. Today we have Dr. Bindu Ronald and Dr. Manika Kamthan from Symbiosis College, Pune, to discuss the issue of gender equality. I'd like to invite Ms. Mercy Varghese to give an introduction about our speakers.
Thank you, Sandeep. Today, our eminent speakers, Dr. Bindu Samuel Ronald is a professor of law with a teaching experience of over 22 years, specializing in corporate and international trade laws. She is the co-head of Symbiosis Center for Advanced Legal Studies and Research and the former deputy director of Symbiosis Law School, Pune. She is also the co-author of Manual of Maharashtra Laws, Volume 14 to 19, and the Bombay Stamp Act. She is a recipient of the Erasmus Mundus Research Grant in 2011. Currently, she is also part of the Erasmus Plus projects on Eurasia and the module leader for the prestigious Jean Monnet module on legal aspects of doing business in EU. She is accompanied by Dr. Manika Kamthan, who is a lawyer by training and now works at the Symbiosis Law School, Pune. She holds MPhil and PhD from the Center for the Study of Law and Governance, JNU. She also holds a postgraduate degree in law and PG diploma in women's studies from AMU. She has several national and international publications to her credit. She writes regularly on interjunctions of law, gender, and disasters. She has completed a research project on gender and disasters funded by Indian Council for the Social Science Research, Government of India, and is also a part of the Erasmus project on climate change and law at Symbiosis Law School. Her interests include gender, disaster and social vulnerabilities, politics of identity, constitutional law, and environmental studies. I welcome both of them to take the stage.
बोल सकते हो कौन सा इनवाइटेड नहीं IIMT ये बात
A very good afternoon to all the participants who are here with us today. It's wonderful to see all of you. I can see that it's a female-dominated auditorium that we have, but we are equally happy that there are a lot of men who are there. I just wanted to start off because we're going to talk a little about gender equality, and we'll tell you a little about what the Indian law ensures as far as gender equality is concerned. Basically, we are going to be talking, me and my colleague, Dr. Manika Kamthan. We are going to be talking a little about gender sensitization, telling you a little about what gender roles are, identification of the privileges and the discriminations that are there. And in the process, we will also tell you a little about the internal committees that are there, which any organization is supposed to have. We are in 2023. Maybe if we went back 50 years back, institutions would not have perhaps had so many women as we see are sitting in an auditorium like this. things have changed from then to today, yet there are so many things that are there which haven't really changed, because I think in each one of us, and when I say in each one of us, I also mean the women who are sitting over here, there are so many things that are there which have got imbibed into us, and we just think that it is part of, everything. We don't even realize that there is a problem in certain things, right? So we're going to tell a little about it. We're going to talk a little about it. We're going to try and sensitize all of you as far as gender is concerned, tell you maybe the difference that is there between equity and equality, and hopefully you'll be able to identify some of the issues that are there yourself. Before I begin, let me thank the organizers over here for inviting us. It's a pleasure to be amongst all of you scientists and the people who are part of the institution. We're going to look at a couple of things. We're going to look at, of course, gender equality, and then probably look at raising awareness that is there of gender equality concerns that are there. Probably look at the instilling, some of the issues that are there which are about instilling empathy into the views that we hold, and everybody holds, and there I'm being a little gender neutral, and examining personal attitudes and beliefs that are there, and questioning the realities that are there, which we think we know, but perhaps there's a little more introspection that is there, which each one of us needs to do to understand things. We start with a little exercise that is there, and there are a few questions that are there for everybody here. And you can just answer this question and just go one by one and ask a few questions. When we talk about, all that you have to say is, when I talk about something, what is the first image that comes to your mind? Is it the image of a male person sitting there, or a female person that is there? So when we talk about control and power, what's the first image that comes to the mind? A male person, but it's not that we don't have women leaders. We have a lot of women leaders who are there in almost every organization, every profession that is there. But yet, when we think about control, power, the first image that comes to our mind is of a male figure. When we talk about somebody being the breadwinner, what's the image that comes to your mind? Male image, but it's not that women are not breadwinners. Maybe we bring the butter on the bread. That's also a possibility that is there. But yes, the image that comes to our mind is that of, the man. When we talk about giving things, now what's the image that comes to your mind? Female. So a female has always been associated as being the giver, everything, whether it is in Annapurna or whether it is anything. When it comes to giving, it is the woman whose image comes to your mind, and not that it is not otherwise, right? When we talk about sacrifices that are made, what's the image that comes to the mind? Again, that of a female. It's again not that we don't have men who are sacrificing, and I'm being neutral over here. There are men who are sacrificing, maybe sometimes even more than what women are. But the moment we think about sacrifice, it's the image of a woman who comes to the mind, right? Washing clothes? Women. Yes. Dominant? And now I'm talking about, characters that are there. Dominant? Who's the dominant one? Men. There are women also, yes. There are very dominant women also. Or do I say that women are dominant? Loving? Both? Yes, it is both. But still, I think, we first think about the mothers. Not that, fathers are not loving. Mothers are very, very loving. Perhaps they don't show it as much, but the image that comes is that. Head of the family. Who's the head of the family? men. We believe that we are the neck, that's fine, but when we talk about the head of the family, we think about a man. Tender, female, caring, and when it comes to cleaning and doing household chores, female. So there is an image that is there which has been created in the mind, and even in 2023, some of these images are there. And what we are going to try to do is we are just looking at what it is and trying to bring some realities that are there. And what me and Manika will be doing is we will be, in parts taking you through this. And I have Professor Manika who would talk to you about some of the other issues that are there.
This. So if you see what Dr. Bindu just did was highlight the gender stereotypes which are there. So we are not saying that men are not tender, we are not saying that men are not caring, but there are certain gender stereotypes which are there and which get cemented and consolidated and solidified over a period of time. So these gender stereotypes is something which needs to be fought back, and the whole idea that if we, now we see that in advertising also. For example, in various detergent ads and all, we see there is a kind of a change. There's a reversal. Gender roles are reversing, but very gradually so. And probably we are the very niche. We are the educated and working class. But if you see that there's a lot of population which is still sticking to those gender stereotypes, that even after education and a job empowerment, economic empowerment, women are supposed to do certain roles, and the gender stereotypes need to continue. So with that we come to the confused identities idea. When we talk about sex and then when we talk about gender, so sex is a biological reality. Sex is we are born with, we are which the doctor. We had talks by two doctors just before us. The doctor tells us, and he was also even in his talk he was disclosing the sex of the baby. He was saying the male baby was born or a female baby was born. Sex is a biological reality, but gender is a social construct. Gender is something which you are told that you are a girl and therefore you are supposed to be like this. That is what gender is. Or for example, today there are a lot of with the whole movement around gender awakeness or awareness, if we can say, the whole movement around LGBTQIA plus people identifying with different genders. We also have something called gender fluidity, that people identify with both genders. So sex is a biological reality, but gender, and therefore we have gender sensitivity, we have gender awareness, because that is something to which we need to awake ourselves. This is not something we are born, but this is something. For example, there's a very famous feminist scholar, Simone de Beauvoir, and she says that women is not born, women is made. Okay, so that is the whole idea of gender. So we'll also touch upon certain laws. We are lawyers by training. So the Constitution of India, that is a fundamental norm for all the laws, a fundamental sacrosanct document for all laws in India. And yes, I would like to say that no, 99% of the laws are not pro-women laws in India. I would take this opportunity to say this. It is not the reality. Howsoever, the Constitution of India has been believes in the ethos of equality and justice, and Article 14 talks about ensures equality before the law and equal protection of the laws by the state. We have Article 15(1), wherein the state shall not discriminate against any citizens on the basis of sex, color, place of birth, and so on. We also have Article 15, which empowers the state or the government to make laws special laws for the women, children, and backward classes. And 16.2 talks about no citizen shall be discriminated against or be ineligible for any employment or office under the state on the ground of sex. So non-discrimination is the principle which the Constitution abides by, and all the other laws need to conform to the Constitution of India. And several laws which are made for the protection of women in India are in furtherance of these constitutional principles. So now we come to equality versus equity. Now equality is something which is absolute. There's nothing called absolute equality per se. And therefore we have affirmative action, therefore we have reservations. And equity is about telling making sure that everybody has the equal opportunity to grow. So the picture which you see here, if you see the first image, if you see the three people are different in their heights. So these height we can understand as they are different in their capacities. But when they are given the equal kind of a stool which is an equal size, that is not empowering the shortest one. So that is equality if you believe in the absolute equality. The principle of absolute equality is not empowering per se. But if you go to the second image, if you see, then it is given according to their need. You know, the first one doesn't need at all. The second one needs a bit, and the shortest one needs the most. So that is the whole idea of equity. And then over a period of time, probably over a period of time, there might come a stage where that particular barrier was removed altogether, and now nobody needs any kind of equipment or any kind of a special tool. So that is the whole idea of equality versus equity. And therefore, when it comes to women or when it comes to scheduled castes or scheduled tribes in India, we have certain affirmative actions because we need to empower men. They need certain type of affirmative action from the state. Now there's another exercise which we would like you to do. And what we want you to do, because we as lawyers are very bad at mathematics. It's an honest confession, but we believe that everybody here is much more better than us. So you just give yourselves plus 10 if your answer is yes to the question which is posed here. So did you learn to ride bicycle before the age of 10? Yes. Did you take any lesson in sports? Did you learn how to iron your clothes in school? Yes. Everybody is there. Can you make tea or breakfast not only for yourself but others too?
Yes. Okay, I think we also want everybody to be, giving yourself this quest.
So we also want the male audience or whatever gender you identify with to please take please do the exercise. Do you pay the household bills yourself? Yes. Do you know the circle rate of the area you live in? Yes. Do you know the current price of gold? Yes. Do you know the exact breakup of your salaries? Yes. Do you own a vehicle on your name? Yes. Do you buy insurance policy unassisted? Yes. Do you know the difference between a mutual fund and an SIP? Yes. Do you file your own income tax returns? Yes. So I think we have a very empowered audience.
We have a very empowered audience. But
so congratulations.
Yeah, but we also need to know how much is the points that you all ended up with.
I think it's a full score. It's a full score. Everybody said it.
Yes, right.
70 to 80%.
Okay. Anybody who was more than 80%? How many were more than 80%? More than 80%? Okay, all right.
So yes, I think congratulations, we have a very empowered. But yes, we do this exercise in different kinds of setups. So probably today the setup is a bit different. But we do find that women, when there's a lot of women audience and a different kind of audience, if I may say so, there is a kind of economic inequality which do exist. Many a times it is seen that women, although they are earning, they don't have that much control even over their own income. So that is the reality. Although we have a different kind of audience today, but we should also submit and we should also confirm that there is a different reality which coexists in this world. So if we try to understand a bit of more theory, understanding gender and human rights, so is biology the destiny? If the society is made up in a certain way, there are gender stereotypes, do we need to conform to it? And we have seen that lately, gradually there is an awakening with regard to gender, and that even if you are born as a woman, then that should not become an impediment in your progress and in your growth. So patriarchy and equality, Sylvia Bowlby defines patriarchy as a system of social structures and practices in which men dominate, oppress, and exploit women. So that is basically by definition a patriarchy. But patriarchy can also be loosely understood as thinking or believing that men will always have the last say in everything. And growing up, we have all, I think that is something which all of us can relate to and have a kind of a consensus that growing up, mostly there are always exceptions, but we have always seen our fathers as the heads of the family, as calling the last shots, whatever, you might discuss a lot. So women in the house will discuss and, will discuss a lot about anything. But at the end of the day, who will decide the final thing? It's usually the father figure or the male member. Gender discrimination is when someone is treated unequally or disadvantageously based on their gender, but not necessarily in a sexual nature. This includes harassment, discrimination based on sex, gender identity, or gender expression. So, interestingly, it's very great that the speaker before us, hoped for a female director. So, a country like USA is still waiting for a female president. If you do a statistical analysis of the educational institutions, how many educational institutions are having women directors or women VCs, the figures are not very great. The figures are disheartening. So you might be doing everything correct in your career graph, but your gender comes in your way. When it comes to handing over the power and handing over the decision making authority. Sexual harassment goes beyond it, and it means behavior characterized by making of unwelcome and inappropriate sexual remarks or physical advances in a workplace or other professional situation. And sexual harassment is having different models. Okay, so there can be just unwanted sexual attention also, that you don't want these kind of comments or comments on your dressing. It can be very subtle, but it can go to the extent of a very outward action of sexual coercion also. So Catherine McKinnon was the first scholar who in fact established that sexual harassment at workplace is a sort of gender discrimination. Why it is a gender discrimination? Because still there's a lot of taboo and stigma attached to getting subjected to sexual harassment. Because the whole idea that you invited it, you could have avoided it. You could have easily avoided it if you have been more aware, more attentive, and more strict in your demeanor. Probably you could have avoided it. And it's a reason that many women choose not to report sexual cases of sexual harassment. They either take transfers, they even go to the extent of resigning from their jobs or taking up a less paying job, just because they don't want to get stigmatized or have this kind of a taboo that they find a case of sexual harassment. So it is not just the violation of your modesty, but it is also violation of your economic rights. It's violation of your political rights, and therefore it's a form of gender discrimination. So the next slide, I will request Dr. Binudu to take over and discuss the law of the land, that is Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act 2013, which is there in India since 2013. And before there was Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan guidelines, which were in fact verbatim copied in the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act 2013. It defines what is sexual harassment. It provides protection to women against sexual harassment, and there is a complaint procedure and the composition of ICC. I request Dr. Binudu to take over. Thank you.
So you've got an idea about what gender is and what gender equality would actually mean. And from the Constitution of India onwards, there are laws that are there which talks about equality, which talks about giving equal rights to the women. And at the same time, all of us know that there are also inequalities that are there, which are inherently there, and there are problems. Now, we had certain cases, we had Vishaka, the case that was there, which has led to certain guidelines being framed, and we have the POSHA Act that is there. We have the Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act that is there, which has come up. which tells us a lot of things, and it is very important in any organization to know what the OSHA guidelines are, what the provisions that are there as far as this particular act is concerned. And it tells you what it is, it tells you how it can be prevented, it also tells you certain consequences and the penalties that are there if there's a violation of the rights that are there. If you look at this particular act, you'll see that and in any act for that matter, there's a definition section that is there, which is very important because when we look at that definition section, it tells you, it defines a particular word in the context of that particular law. The POSHA Act 2013 also defines certain things, and it tells you what sexual harassment means. It tells you certain things which can be construed or which can be taken as sexual harassment, and it says that any physical advances, any physical contact or advances that are made, it comes within the definition of sexual harassment. A demand or request for sexual favors, it is a sexual harassment. Making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, or any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of sexual nature, this all is brought within the definition of sexual harassment. So it doesn't really have to be a physical contact that has to be there. It doesn't have to be a demand for sexual favor, even if there is a sexually colored remark that is there which is made, or if there are certain videos, etc., that are shown, all this can be brought within the purview of sexual harassment, and the women have a remedy or a recourse under this particular act. Now, if you look at this act, you will see that the object of the act is protection, prevention, and redressal. It talks about protection, it talks about prevention, what has to be done, and it talks about the redressal, the penalties, etc., that are there. I've already told you what is the definition of the term sexual harassment. There are other definitions that are there that the Act talks about. It tells you who's the aggrieved person. It tells you what is the workplace. So, when you talk about a workplace, a government organization, it means departments that are there, etc., of a government body, or even a private place, or even your workplace where you have domestic help that are there who are working with you. All these are construed to be workplace, and the POSHA Act applies over there. Sexual harassment, what it is, I've already told to you, an aggrieved woman. It talks about any person who is employed, and which includes your unorganized sector, your domestic, casual, temporary workers who are there, students, clients, patients, customers, all of them are brought within the purview of that. There are certain duties that are there which has been provided under this as far as the employers are concerned, and it says that the employers have to provide a safe and conducive workplace for the employees. They have to constitute an ICC. They have to constitute an internal complaints committee. So any organization, whether it is a government organization or whether it is a private organization, there has to be an internal committee that has to be constituted. There has to be the display of the constitution that has to be there. Your internal complaints committee constitution has to be displayed at prominent places when you talk about the workplace, and also the penal consequences that are there. It talks about the duties of the employer, where it says that you have to have regular workshops, you have to organize, you have to sensitize the people, because a lot of times, as I started off, we may know something, or things may have got so internalized into us that we do not really understand that it's a wrong that is done to us. Either it is that, or we don't want to take an action. But as far as the law is concerned, there is a provision that is there that has been provided. So, and then there has to be an internal complaints committee. I think we can move. Just one more thing that I just need to say, that when you talk about the internal complaints committee, there is a constitution that is there. Who are to be the persons part of the of the internal committee has been stated in the POSHA Act. So it has to be, there has to be a chairperson. It has to be a senior woman employee from the organization. And if you go on to read the act, it says that if the, and when we talk about a workplace, IC has to be formed even if there are, your workplace is spread across and there are different places where you're, in each of it, there has to be the IC that has to be constituted. So if you don't have a senior woman employee, it can be from another department that the chairperson can be taken. You are supposed to have two members who are again, it can be men or women, of course, the two members, and there has to be one person who has to be a person from the NGO. And at least half of the members of the IC have to be women. So that's another requirement that is there. It goes on to, the act goes on to define who is an employer. So, it's in the context of a workplace, of government or local bodies that are there, a private workplace or a dwelling house. In all these, it talks about so this is your internal complaints committee constitution that is there. I'm very sure that your organization would be having an internal complaints committee. If it is not, then in that case, it's supposed to be there, right? The complaints committee, who can make the committee, Professor Manika will be talking about, the whole process that is there. But yes, anyone who is aggrieved has got the right to make the complaint. If she is unable, and it has to be in writing, if she is physically incapacitated to make the complaint, then you have the following people who are there who can also bring up a complaint on behalf of the aggrieved person. So a complainant's relative, friend, co-worker, any of these people it can be. In case of the complainant's death, then in that case, the relatives are also, if they know about any incident that is there, they also can bring up an action. In case of mental incapacity, again, there are the people who are there who are empowered to bring the action against the person against whom there has been a sexual harassment issue that has been. Right? We have the inquiry process, and Manika takes over to tell you about what the inquiry process as such is.
So very quickly, without taking much time, the inquiry process is quite simple and it is empowering as a matter of fact. It is the stage one is receipt of the complaint, wherein you can go and you can talk to the ICC and you file your complaint. If you want to keep it informal, it can be informal. If you want to keep it formal, then the formal can be there. And then the respondent is also given an opportunity to, against whom the complaint is filed is also given an opportunity to respond. The stage two is planning carefully, prepare the file and then consider it. Stage three are interviews, wherein the ICC has to prepare an interview plan with regard to complainant, witnesses and respondent. So the principles of natural justice, that is audi ultra partem, both parties be heard, is very well followed in the ICC mechanism. And the ICC, in fact, as per the law, is having all the powers of a civil court. So it can call witnesses, it can call evidences, everything. Assess the completeness of the information. Stage 4, analyze and reason out and finding a recommendation, and 6 is writing the report. So it's a very well laid inquiry process is followed, wherein the complainant is required to first of all file a complaint and also decide that whether she wants to go formally or informally with regard to this whole procedure. Also, according to the Act, the aggrieved can always be a woman. So the Act is not gender neutral in nature. It's the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act empowers only women to file a complaint and not men or any other who identifies with gender other than women. And then the act is also with regard to, because we all know that justice delayed is justice denied, so there is a timeline which needs to be followed by the ICC strictly, which is the submission of complaint should be within last 3 months of the incident. Notice to the respondent within 7 days of receiving of the complaint, completion within 90 days, that is 3 months, submission of report by ICC to employer within 10 days, and implementation of recommendation within 60 days. If there are any appeals to it, that can be filed within 3 months of the recommendations. So this is in fact in a gist, this is about the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act. And today we would like to thank organizers for giving us this opportunity to talk about gender equality and sexual harassment in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bindu and Dr. Manika, for your wonderful words. I request you to accept a gift from IITM as a token of our appreciation.